Have you ever wondered why certain truths about women are always pushed aside, silenced, or labeled too offensive to even discuss? Why some words, spoken nearly 200 years ago, still burn like fire today? There's a reason. Because when a man discovers these truths, he changes forever. He stops being manipulated. He stops being used. He stops being blind. And that is exactly why women never wanted men to hear what Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear is not sweet, it's not romantic, and it's not the usual fairy tale you were raised on. This is brutal. This is raw. And once you hear it, you can't go back. Schopenhauer, one of the most pessimistic yet brutally honest philosophers in history, wrote about women in a way no polite society dares to repeat. Even today, academics try to water it down, to bury it under context. But truth has a way of surviving. And today, you will hear it, here on Be Stoic. Schopenhauer saw what most men refuse to see, that women, for all their charm, beauty, and grace, were not angels. They were not divine mysteries to worship. To him, women were nature's instruments. Their primary power lay in their ability to attract, to seduce, to pull men into a trap of desire that enslaves his reason. He called women the sexus sequior, the second sex, designed less for lofty thought and more for the continuation of the species. That's harsh. That's controversial. But let's be honest, how many times have you, as a man, felt that you lost yourself chasing beauty? How many times has desire made you weak? Think about it. How often has a man with everything, wealth, power, even wisdom, thrown it all away for the sake of a woman? Entire kingdoms have been destroyed, wars fought, men betrayed their own brothers because they couldn't resist desire. That is what Schopenhauer meant. And isn't it strange that even today, in a world where we claim to be so modern, so enlightened, the same story repeats itself again and again? But here's the part that makes this even darker. Schopenhauer believed women were closer to children than to men. He thought their thinking was shallow, focused only on the immediate. Beauty, clothes, gossip, appearances, that was their world. And because of this, he argued, women could manipulate men more easily. Why? Because a man in his strength thinks in long-term visions, but desire makes him short-sighted. A beautiful face can blind him, and when blinded, he can be led anywhere. Now pause. Don't just listen. Reflect. How many times has your judgment been clouded by attraction? How often have you excused behavior you never would tolerate, simply because you wanted her? That is what Schopenhauer wanted men to face, the uncomfortable truth. And this is why women never wanted men to hear it. Because when a man sees through the illusion, when he realizes that beauty is a weapon, when he understands that desire is a chain around his neck, he becomes dangerous. He becomes free. But here's the twist. Schopenhauer was not alone. The Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, said something very similar, though less cruelly. They warned men about being slaves to passion. Seneca once wrote, "The man who masters himself is greater than the man who conquers an empire." Marcus Aurelius said, "Do not be mastered by pleasure." They all point at the same thing. If you lose control to beauty, you lose control of yourself. And here's the shocking part. Even though Schopenhauer's words are nearly 2 centuries old, they sting today because they hit something real. Something you, deep down, have felt, that in moments of desire, you've been weak. That in moments of lust, you've been led. And the moment you admit that truth, you reclaim your power. Let me tell you a story. A man once said, "I built my entire life around her. She was my world. And when she left me, I was broken." How many times have you heard that? How many men spiral into depression, self-destruction, or even end their lives because of a woman? Now ask yourself, if Schopenhauer is wrong, why does this happen so often? Why do men give away their strength so easily? Because society never told them this truth. Society told them, chase her, worship her, give her everything. Happy wife, happy life. But the philosophers warned, master yourself or you will be mastered. And here's the hook. Women have always known their power. That's why they never wanted men to hear Schopenhauer's words. Because if men saw clearly, If men stopped worshiping blindly, if men controlled their own desires, the game would be over. Attraction would still exist, love would still exist, but men would no longer be weak. They would choose instead of being chosen. Think about your own life. When you begged for her attention, did she respect you more? When you sacrificed your dreams to make her happy, did she admire you, or did she lose respect? Schopenhauer would say, of course she did, because weakness repels and strength attracts. So what's the lesson here? It's not to hate women. That would be foolish. It's to see clearly, to realize that beauty is not divinity, that desire is not destiny. A woman's charm is real, but it is not magic unless you give it power. And if you can master your response, if you can remain calm in the storm of attraction, you become unshakable. The Stoics called this apatheia, freedom from being ruled by passions. Schopenhauer called it brutal honesty. But the message is the same. The man who controls himself cannot be controlled. Now imagine this. Imagine walking into any situation, no matter how beautiful she is, no matter how seductive, and you remain steady. She tests you with silence, and you don't chase. She flirts with others, and you don't collapse. She leaves, and you don't fall apart. Imagine that power. That is what this truth gives you. And that is why women never wanted men to hear it. Because a man like that cannot be played. He cannot be manipulated with looks, with words, or with games. He sees clearly. And when a man sees clearly, he becomes free. So, what do you do with this knowledge? First, accept it. Stop living in illusions. Stop worshiping what is temporary. A woman's beauty is real, yes, but so is the sun. You don't build your life around staring at it. Second, discipline yourself. Train your mind. Train your body. Master your desires. When you feel attraction pulling you into weakness, remind yourself, this is nature testing me. Third, live by values greater than pleasure. Build your empire, your strength, your purpose. Because when you live for something greater, beauty becomes companion, not a chain. And let me warn you, this path is not easy. It will test you. You will be tempted. But every time you resist, every time you remain calm when others fall apart, you grow stronger. You prove to yourself that you are not a slave. And the more you master yourself, the less the outside world controls you. In the end, Schopenhauer's words are not comfortable. They're not polite. They're not romantic. But they're a mirror. And if you dare to look into it, you will see the truth. That the greatest danger to a man is not the woman herself, but his blindness to her power. So ask yourself now, will you keep living in illusions, or will you open your eyes? Because here's the ultimate truth. Women never wanted men to hear this, but men must. Not to hate, not to fear, but to rise above, to see beauty without being blinded, to love without being enslaved, to walk away without being broken. That is freedom. That is strength. That is stoicism. And if you want to live as a man who cannot be shaken, who sees clearly in a world full of illusions, then remember this. What they never wanted you to hear is exactly what you needed to know. This is Be Stoic. Subscribe, because the truths that make men strong are the ones society hides. And here, we bring them into the light.